and welcome to the show. I'm your host, Lynn Weaver, and the program in the studio is brought to you by Davis Media Access and broadcast over Davis Community Television, that's Comcast Channel 15 and AT&T UVerse 99. We're also online at dctv.davismedia.org, so log on and check us out. You can check our schedule as well as you can view some of our other programs and many episodes of In the Studio. Our topic today is the celebration of Juneteenth 2013. This important observance commemorates in many states the emancipation of slaves in the state of Texas on June 19th, 1865. Now in Davis, the celebration will be held at the Veterans Center, and we are here with our guest, Jay Johnstone. He is the librarian in charge of the Davis branch of the Yolo County Library, and he is also one of the coordinators and one of the MCs of the event. Welcome so much for coming, and welcome for your time and your dedication to this community. We're looking forward to hearing more about the event and the history behind the event. We have invited the other coordinator, Sandy Holman, but unfortunately she couldn't be here because she's out of town. So Jay, let's start by talking about the event happening in Davis. This is a very important event. Some have called this the second 4th of July, marking the emancipation, the freedom, the secession in a way from any other state or state of mind. So tell us a little more about what's going to happen on June 22nd in Davis at the Veterans Center.
I'd be glad to, and thanks for inviting me. This is the 150th anniversary of the Emancipation Proclamation, so it is a really special time, I think, all across the country. But and for us, this is the second time that the library has been involved in the Juneteenth celebration in Davis. It will be on the 22nd, that's a Saturday, at the Veterans Memorial Building, MPR, the multipurpose room. That's from 1 to 5. We're also going to have events at the library itself. This expansion of the program came about because in 2011, when we first celebrated this, it was overwhelmingly popular. We didn't have room in the library for everyone. So this year, through the gracious generosity of the City of Davis, we're able to use the Veterans Center. What's going to happen? It's a family event. We'll have food, music, dancing. These are traditional things with Juneteenth events.
So it's a family-friendly event.
It is family-friendly,
yes.
Definitely. We're going to have activities for the children at the library as well.
Yes.
There'll be food, I think I mentioned that. It's a potluck, but we're also going to make sure there's enough for everyone. We're going to do a book giveaway. There'll be the musical events. We've got, I believe it's Sandy Holman's doing the program, and unfortunately she's not here to talk about it, but yes. I'll do my best.
Oh, but just an overview.
Yeah, well, yes. A couple of, at least 2 jazz performers, a funk group, a drum ensemble, and there'll also be some special honoring certain elders.
Awards, yes.
Awards.
Given.
But one of the highlights of this year, I think, that really caught my eye was she said, we're going to do a hat extravaganza. So hats are a big deal in the summertime, in the South especially anyway.
Yes.
And this is a big tradition in Juneteenth is hats. So I'll be showing some hats later in the program, and
great.
I've been invited to model myself, so I'm looking for a hat.
Well, I have several. Maybe I can lend you one, but I don't know whether it would fit. The one thing that perhaps we should mention that the hosts and the sponsors for this event are the Yolo County Library, the Friends of the Library, and of course the City Human Rights Commission. And I think there are several other groups like the Culture Co-op.
Yeah, Culture
and
Co-op.
We People, Becca, African American Committee, and All-Star Action Team. Is that correct?
That's correct.
I hope we haven't left out anyone.
We're all back to do it again, and looking forward to it.
Yes.
The financial support for this is coming from the Friends of the Davis Library, private donors, and we do have vendors. We're going to have craft vendors and some food vendors. So they'll be helping out. We're taking donations online through the Friends of the Library website. And then the city, of course, is providing this big in-kind contribution of the building.
Yes, and of note too is that the room at the Veterans Center is really beautiful, and people will be very happy to be there and celebrate.
2011, I was struck by a couple of older women who said to me, "It's such a joy to be inside." And I realized, you think about it, going back through the generations, starting in 1865 in Texas, June 19th, you can imagine how hot it was. A lot of these celebrations over the years were always conducted outside in parks, and so it was really they were so happy to be able to be inside.
Well, that's great. And also, one thing that perhaps should be said, and I'm sure you'll cover it when we talk about the history of Juneteenth, is that the origin of the word is, of course, it's a contraction or a blend of June 19th, and then became Juneteenth. Yeah. And so it sounds like a wonderful event, and as I said previously, I think most states celebrate this annually, don't they?
Informally, there are, I think, maybe four states where it's actually a legal holiday.
Yes.
But very, very few of the states have it as a legal holiday.
Yes.
And
as of now, anyway.
As of now.
Yes.
Texas is one.
Yes.
And but it is, I feel, such a milestone in human history, you know, where this so-called democracy finally put an end to this heinous practice of people as property.
Yes.
And so what Juneteenth does is celebrate family and opportunity and success, achievement. When you look back and think about how it must have felt to be a slave. I mean, you know, your family could be sold. You wouldn't have parents. Your children could be taken away. You had no rights at all.
You
None.
were forbidden to learn how to read and write.
Right. And of course there are all those. And slavery itself was embedded in the Constitution. So the Civil War finally had to settle that issue. It was a bad deal to begin with. The Constitution was set up to try to unite the original colonies in order to basically to pay off their war debt from the Revolutionary War. And so there was an accommodation made with the southern slave-holding states.
Yes.
I mean, Thomas Jefferson owned slaves.
Of course.
So, you know, there it is. It's still in our Constitution. It's been finally overridden by the 13th Amendment and later legislation to make sure people do get equal opportunity for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
That's right.
Which, by the way, is not in the Constitution. It's in the Declaration of Independence.
Well, that's great. Yes, and I believe that in the UK now, and in some of the British former colonies, they have a Juneteenth, like the Caribbeans, for example. They celebrate, but because the movement, the anti-slavery movement began in England, I believe. So it is almost a a universal or international celebration, and it's very moving. One thing that you mentioned when we spoke was that in Davis in particular, which is so multicultural, this festival or this celebration includes other minorities, not just African Americans, but it's sort of a statement that we're all equal and we deserve to be happy and free. Isn't that?
That's right.
Yes.
And to celebrate our freedom to take advantage of our opportunities and go as far as we can, and all of us.
Yes. Now you are, of course, a librarian, extremely well-read, a history buff.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little more about what actually this emancipation declaration in the state of Texas meant in a practical sort of way? Of course, it wasn't ipso facto. Everybody became free all over the world, you know, or all over the United States.
Right.
Yeah.
It was, well, the Civil War was raging, and thousands of people were dying. And President Lincoln was trying to find a way to end slavery and do it within his constitutional powers. And finally, he realized a strategy that would work, which was, because he's commander-in-chief, he could, by executive order, declare that all federal officers, all federal agencies would enforce the freedom for the slaves within the Confederacy, the states that were in rebellion. So that did not include some of the border states where they were still slave states, but they didn't join the Confederacy. It didn't necessarily free slaves in the so-called free states. It was, and it didn't actually make slavery. It didn't make slavery illegal. It just declared that the military would enforce the opportunity for slaves to leave the plantation if they wanted to, or stay if they could, but they had to be paid for their work. Mm-hmm. And it also negated all these fugitive slave laws and other things like that. And militarily, it did two things. One, the freed slaves could join the Union Army, and that really helped a lot. And they could also, it meant that the slave states lost this huge workforce. So it was a form of economic warfare as well.
It was, and it's interesting that you mentioned that, because it was based, of course, on principle and morality, but it also had a practical side to it, that all these slaves could go and fight against the Confederates, and the Confederates were leaving behind basically just no one to care for their cotton fields, their industries, and their agriculture. Yeah. So it was really a very smart move.
The interesting thing about Juneteenth itself is that it took 2 years for the word to be for the proclamation to be enforced in Texas. I mean, 1863, I think it was January 1st, Lincoln made the proclamation, or that's when it went into effect.
Yes.
And I think he said it would actually go into effect within 100 days. But it took 2 years to get the word to Texas. And that's...
the word to the other citizens of Texas?
No, well, it took 2 years for the Emancipation Proclamation to be enforced in Texas.
Oh, I see, yes.
1863 it was issued. And it was 1865 before Texas heard about it. Mm-hmm. And it was just shortly after that the 13th Amendment actually was passed, which did make slavery illegal. And of course, anybody that's seen the movie Lincoln will see the drama around all that.
Yes, I think that's very helpful to see that movie, because it really simplifies a very complex topic, I believe. What we would like to do now is we would like you to help us comment on some of the visuals that we have. Sure. Some of them you brought. So the first visual that we're going to see is actually a postcard, which is a flyer for the event, and maybe we can see some of the in more details what this is the flyer or the postcard, right, as they call it, and it has the information, the date, it's a free event, the time, and it has a list of sponsors and then activities and music groups and so on. And it's a very pretty, I like it very much. And do you know who?
I do. I don't, I'm not sure which of Sandy's interns did this, but yes, they really did a nice job. And I think I particularly like the butterfly theme because it is such a symbol of
it's lovely, yes,
a metamorphosis,
yes,
coming out of a cocoon and so on.
Yes.
Also, I wanted to, I think there's a couple of other things about it that, well.
This is also on the website, of course. So if you go to the website, there's one that is yolocounty.org, and then the Friends of the Library website, and we will have them displayed on the screen. And of course, you can view this program again. You can stream it on our website, so you'll be able to see all the details. Now,
could I say something about the fact that the theme here is celebrating freedom and family? I mean, yes, this is important because it is, well, I think we all want to celebrate family value. That's what the library stands for. Strong communities, strong families. We try to help that happen. And these, this particular event does celebrate the endurance of the families who were freed at that time and the achievements that they've done. It's going to honor Jack Jackson and Amelia Nix, who were senior members of the African American community and passed away recently. At least Jack did. I'm sorry, I don't know about Amelia.
It's all right.
But in any case, the hats off to the ancestors is the reason for the hats. They're going to do a hats off to the ancestors.
Well, that's a very interesting idea.
And I think if I could,
very entertaining too.
I would like to read a poem.
And there's a visual.
Oh
there
yeah, the hats.
Of the hats.
Yeah, good. The hats.
It's very colorful.
Yeah.
Very pretty. There's another.
Yeah, this is an old tradition.
In the South.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. I think, and actually hats go back, I mean, hats have a big role in American history. I'm going to talk about that when we talk about Jim Beckwith, for instance, the mountain men.
The mountain men from California.
Yeah. I mean, think about it. People in those times spent a lot of time outside.
Yes.
So having a hat was you needed a hat for everything. If you're riding a horse, except if you're in a carriage. So hats were a big thing.
Very big thing.
And these guys, like Jim Beckwith, he was one of the mountain men who came. Yes. He was born in 1798 in Virginia, became a mountain man in the West, and before we had a gold rush, we had a rush for beaver pelts.
Yes.
Because they were used for beaver hats.
Yes. I would like you now, you brought a poem.
Yes.
By an African American,
yes,
and a freed slave, and I think we also have a visual of
of a miner.
Of a miner at that time, and the poem is very moving. Please.
He's working on it, I know.
Yeah.
Please
read the poem.
The point of let me read the poem. It's by Clyde Daniels, and it's
Here
from.
We go. This is one of the images that Jay brought to us from the State Library, and we made it into a digital format, so maybe some of the details are not so good, but it gives you an idea. It's an old image. And please tell us about this poem. Read the poem.
First, I'm going to say this is a miner, an African-American miner, 1849, so we've had, a history of...
The 49ers.
The 49ers.
Yes.
And this is a poem by Clyde Daniels. It's in a book called Juneteenth, Texas. And here I just want to read it to you because this is an African American voice. It's called Wreath of Laurels. To the old trailblazers who laid the foundation by the grace of God, in whose shadow I stand, whose path I trod. To the old trailblazers who tilled the soil and took the whip, whose bleeding, festering sores reflected their scarred souls, and weathered calloused hands mirrored calloused hearts. To the old trailblazers whose hope of a sun-filled day was spoiled by the rife eclipse that taunted them. To the old trailblazers for all their untold stories and forgotten accomplishments, for all the years of being toiled into the soil, I humbly bestow this wreath of laurels.
It's beautiful. And do you know when it was written?
He's a
49er.
No, he's not.
He's
I don't
not
have
a
the
49er.
date.
But sometime
He's contemporary.
He's contemporary.
His mother. I can tell you, his mother was born in 1874
Yes.
and died in 1973. So this is more or less contemporary.
It's beautiful. It's
But,
beautiful.
It
and,
is.
And of course, there are many books of poems in the Davis Library.
Yeah, got to put a
By
plug in
African
for that,
American.
right?
Yes, that's right.
Can I go back to Jim Beckwith for a minute?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And do we have a Jim Beckwith visual?
Yeah, that was
Yes?
the first one.
That was the first
He
one.
was a
There we
man.
go.
He was born in
Yes.
He was well. First of all, anybody that's hiked in the Sierra Nevadas should know about Beckwith Pass and Beckwith Meadows because it's right there on Highway 70 in Plymouth County, kind of northwest of Reno. He, in his later years, developed an Indian trail that came over the passes along the Feather River and then he made it into a wagon road that immigrants could use more conveniently than the Donner Pass and so on. But he started his career as a mountain man. He left. Well, the important thing is he was a son of a slave and therefore a slave himself in Virginia until he was around 10 or so. And his father was a white farmer. Some say he was a
slave owner?
Not an owner. I've forgotten the word for it. The taskmaster. Anyway.
The taskmaster.
But anyway,
yes.
that man had married a black woman. So because Jim's mother was black and a slave, he was a slave. The father moved the whole family to Missouri so that the family could be free. And that set up Jim for a life of adventure. He took off. He was a blacksmith. He did a lot of things. But he settled in California up there and guided people across the pass. He had a deal with the city of Marysville to make this road. And when he went to collect, by that time the city had a couple of huge fires. They'd changed leadership. They'd lost their records. And this black man comes to the city fathers and says, where's my money? And they said basically something like, who are you, boy? And of course he was discouraged by that, yes. Picked up and left and went back to a place near Denver with his Indian wife, whose name was Pine Leaf. Yes. He was, among other things, a chief in the Crow tribe. Fascinating guy. And that's all I really can say about him.
It is a fascinating story.
Yeah.
And of course he must have been quite very bright.
Yes.
And entrepreneurish, yes.
Very, very much an entrepreneur. He took
yes.
advantage of his opportunities.
Yes.
We have another slide of African American history in California. The diaspora, the migration away from the South began, of course, as soon as the emancipation was effected.
Yes.
One of the routes was the Pullman porters on the railroads, which had come into being, in the 1860s across transcontinental. Then there was World War I and World War II, where we saw more African Americans coming out of the South, taking advantage of the opportunities that the Emancipation Proclamation provided. We've got a slide, I think, but maybe it hasn't come up. It's about about Rosie the Riveter and the war.
No, can you tell us?
A lot of men, of course, were.
About her?
A lot of the women were.
We still have a few minutes.
The men were fighting, so women were working in the war industry.
Yes.
This slide shows is from a newspaper, a black-owned newspaper in Sacramento during the war. And it is, I think it says something about Jim Crow
This
doesn't...
is the Civil War.
No, this is World War II I'm talking
Well,
about.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
yes.
So they contributed a lot to the war, and a lot of African Americans came this way. Anybody that's read Warmth of Other Suns will understand this, and I recommend that book
It's a
very highly.
beautiful
Warmth of
book.
Other Suns.
It's absolutely beautiful, and it's a fairly recent book.
It is.
It's about 3 years old.
Yeah.
Warmth of Other Suns.
Warmth of Other Suns. Yeah.
That's great. Well, I think if you were to summarize in just one sentence what Juneteenth means to you, could you tell us, perhaps?
Well, I've been thinking about this since 4 o'clock this morning. I think, well, it means that it is a celebration of the rights for people all over the world to have an opportunity to go as far as they can with their talents.
And of course, one of the most poignant factors to me is that they were forbidden to read and write. So, and that I think was terrible. Yeah? It's hideous. Terrible things. Yeah. So we're just about out of time, but I wanted to mention the literacy, because I think you, as a librarian and very well read and historians, you can appreciate that. And we're very lucky to have the Davis branch of the YOLO Library.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, J. Johnstone, librarian in charge of the Davis branch of the YOLO Library. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you, all of you, for watching this. You've been watching in the studio. I'm your host, Lynn Weaver. Remember, you can find us online at dctv.davismedia.org, and there you can check our schedule, you can stream some of the programs, and of course you can watch this show over and over and over again. Again, I'm your host, Lynn Weaver. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.